In the charming coastal town of Havenport, a passionate young baker named Lily pours her heart into every pastry she creates at her cozy shop, Seaside Sweets. But just as her dreams begin to rise, so does the bitterness of competition. Lily's kindness and talent spark envy in Vanessa, a rival baker who will stop at nothing to see her fail. Rumors swirl, customers vanish, and sabotage lurks in the shadows. Through it all, there's one person Lily leans on: James, a quiet, supportive friend who always seems to show up when she needs him most. What Lily doesn't know is that James is hiding something that could change everything. Behind his modest smile is a powerful secret. James is the CEO of Coastal Ventures, with the power to save or destroy everything Lily has worked for. As Lily battles betrayal, heartbreak, and the collapse of her dreams, she has no idea that someone is fighting for her behind the scenes. But what happens when love, trust, and truth collide? Will Lily see James for who he truly is, or walk away from the one person who never stopped believing in her? This is a story of quiet sacrifice, hidden strength, and love that endures in the face of sabotage. Subscribe now for more emotionally powerful stories where love wins, not with grand gestures, but with unseen devotion. Havenport, a coastal town with clapboard shops and cobblestone sidewalks, smelled like salt, sugar, and stories. In the early golden light, Seaside Sweets was already warm with life. Inside, Lily Monroe dusted powdered sugar over a tray of lemon-lavender scones. Her petite frame moved with rhythm, her apron smudged with flour. The bell above the bakery door jingled. "Morning, Lily," came a familiar voice. James Carter stepped in, hands tucked in his worn gray hoodie, a quiet smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. He always came just after the first batch came out. Never too early, never too late. "You're predictable, James," Lily said, smiling without looking up. "One honey almond croissant and a black coffee?" "You know me too well," he said, stepping closer to the glass display. Lily handed him the warm croissant in a paper bag. "So," she said, leaning against the counter, "I'm trying something new for the fall menu. Pumpkin chai cupcakes. Think Havenport's ready?" James took a slow sip of his coffee. "If you made it, they're ready." She laughed softly. "Thanks, but things have been tight lately. Rent's climbing. Supplies are up. One wrong step, and this place could go under." James's expression shifted subtly. "Have you thought about expanding online? Maybe shipping?" "Sure. Thought about it. Dreamed about it. But dreams cost money, and I don't have a fairy godmother with a business degree." James chuckled but said nothing. His eyes held something deeper, concern, and something like admiration. Just then, the door swung open harder than necessary. Vanessa Lane, dressed in crisp pastels and perfect eyeliner, walked in like she owned the sidewalk. "Still selling cupcakes, Lily?" she said, voice dripping with sweetness. "Brave of you." Lily's jaw tightened, but she smiled politely. "Morning, Vanessa." Vanessa glanced at James and gave a shallow nod. "Oh, you again? Still hanging around here?" James returned a small, polite smile. "Can't stay away from the croissants." With a scoff, Vanessa turned her attention back to Lily. "Hope your ovens work today. Wouldn't want another accidental burn like last week. That poor birthday party." Lily's face flushed. "That was one order, and I made it right." Vanessa shrugged, clearly satisfied with the tension she left behind. She strutted out, phone already pressed to her ear. James watched her go. "She's consistent. She's cruel," Lily muttered, wiping her hands on a towel. "Her bakery across town keeps trying to poach my clients. I swear she's out for blood." "You're better than her," James said softly. "You bake with heart. People feel that." Lily met his gaze, her shoulders relaxing just a bit. "Thanks for saying that." James hesitated, then set his coffee down. Listen, if things ever get too hard and you need help, financial or otherwise, I'm okay, Lily cut in gently. I appreciate it, but I've gotten this far on my own. I just need to keep pushing. James nodded slowly, hiding a flicker of disappointment. She didn't know he could write a check large enough to buy the building she was leasing. But he didn't want to be her savior. He just wanted to be there. As he turned to leave, Lily called after him. Hey, James. He looked over his shoulder. Thanks for showing up. Every day. His smile returned. Every day, he echoed, then stepped back into the cool morning. Back inside, Lily looked out at the sea through the storefront window, hope and uncertainty tangled in her chest. She didn't know the storm that was coming, or the quiet force already moving to protect her. By late afternoon, the hum of Havenport's main street had faded into a lazy lull. But inside Seaside Sweets, tension was rising like a ruined soufflé. Lily stood at the counter, hands on her hips, reading a 3-star review on her phone. The food blog post, anonymous of course, claimed her ingredients were inconsistent, hinting that she used cheap substitutes. It had already been shared on the town's community board, where opinions hardened fast and forgiveness came slow. Across the room, her part-time barista, Molly, read over her shoulder. That's not even true, she muttered. You handpick every ingredient. Lily sighed, rubbing her temples. I know, but people don't question rumors. They just repeat them. I bet Vanessa had something to do with it, Molly added darkly. Lily didn't answer. She didn't want to sound paranoid, even though the thought had been circling her mind like a hawk all morning. Just then, the door creaked open, and James walked in, carrying a brown bag and 2 coffees. I figured you could use some reinforcements, he said, holding up the bag with a hopeful smile. Lily offered a tired one in return. You're a lifesaver. He passed her the coffee. Rough day? You could say that. She took a long sip before nodding toward the counter. Some blog called my cakes cheap, said I use boxed mix. James raised an eyebrow. You? Who weighs ingredients down to the last gram? Yeah, apparently that doesn't matter anymore. He grew quiet for a moment, studying her. What can I do? You're doing it, she said gently, being here. But James's mind was already turning. He'd seen this tactic before, poisoning public perception quietly, subtly. In the corporate world, it was standard warfare. In Havenport, it felt all the more vicious cloaked behind a small-town civility. I don't like seeing you discouraged, he said, voice low. You've built something real here, Lily. She shrugged, trying to smile. I wish people would taste for themselves instead of believing whatever they read. James didn't reply, but later that night, after leaving the bakery, he called someone from his contacts list labeled simply TC, Press. Tom, he said, as soon as the line connected, I need a favor. Quiet one. Can you send someone good, really good, to review a bakery in Havenport? Don't tell them who asked. Just make sure they show up this week. You running a secret sugar empire now? Tom chuckled. Something like that, James replied. Just help me out. Consider it done. Back at the bakery, Lily leaned against the display case, watching the clock tick toward closing. She thought of how her sales had dipped over the past 2 weeks. Regulars were still loyal, but new faces had stopped coming in. She couldn't shake the feeling that Vanessa was pulling strings behind the scenes. Just last month, Vanessa had offered to collaborate, a vague, backhanded suggestion she'd brushed off. Since then, she'd heard whispers. Customers who had once praised her cakes now said they were too sweet, or that her cupcakes lacked flair. Subtle digs that chipped away at her confidence. Later, as she swept flour off the floor, her phone buzzed with a message from her landlord. Rent due in 4 days. No extensions this time. Lily stared at the message, a pit forming in her stomach. She closed up shop, locking the door behind her with a sigh. Outside, the moonlight cast soft shadows on the cobbled street. She didn't see James parked across the road in his black SUV, watching the bakery with quiet concern. He hadn't meant to linger, but something about the way she stood, head bowed, shoulders heavy, told him she needed more than just coffee and conversation. She needed someone in her corner, and he intended to be exactly that, whether she ever knew the truth or not. By Wednesday morning, the scent of cinnamon rolls drifted down Havenport's sleepy main street. Inside Seaside Sweets, Lily wiped down the counter with the same precision she gave every morning ritual. But her eyes were tired, her movements slower. The blog rumors still lingered, and sales hadn't fully recovered. She didn't expect the tall man in a navy peacoat who entered just after opening. He wore polished boots, a leather notebook in one hand, and glasses that slid slightly down his nose. He looked like a lawyer, or a critic. "Good morning," Lily greeted him, tucking her hair behind her ear. "What can I get you?" The man scanned the case. "What's your signature?" Lily blinked. "Oh, probably the maple bourbon pecan tartlets." He gave a polite nod. "One of those, and a cappuccino, please." She moved into action, warming the tartlet just slightly, the way regulars liked it. The man scribbled something in his notebook as she handed it to him. "Is there a reason you're taking notes?" she asked gently. He glanced up. "Oh, I do freelance food writing. I review small-town bakeries for regional outlets." Lily's heart skipped. "Oh," she managed. "Well, I hope it doesn't disappoint." The man smiled. "We'll see." He sat by the window, taking small bites and longer pauses. Lily busied herself behind the counter but kept stealing glances. Her palms were sweating. When he left, he offered a quiet, "Thank you, lovely space," and disappeared. By noon, Lily was still reeling from the visit. Molly peeked in from the back. "Did I just see someone reviewing us?" "I think so," Lily whispered, "but I didn't invite him. I have no idea how he found us." "Maybe the universe is finally playing fair." Lily smiled, but somewhere deep inside, she couldn't shake the strangeness of it all. Across town, in a minimalist office suite with glass walls and a panoramic view of the sea, James sat on a video call. "Tom," he said, "the guy you sent, he go?" "Yeah," Tom replied, sipping from a thermos. "Texted me a few hours ago. Said the tartlet was divine. Said she's the real deal." "She is," James replied, almost under his breath. "You gonna tell her?" "Not yet. She deserves this moment without strings. She's had enough people doubt her." Tom gave him a long look through the screen. "You're falling for her, huh?" James gave a small smile. "I already fell." The next morning, Seaside Sweets was buzzing. A new review had dropped on the Crumb Trail, a respected foodie blog that covered regional spots across New England. Havenport's best-kept secret, Seaside Sweets. The tartlets sing with flavor. Handcrafted, balanced, nostalgic. The kind of place that reminds you why local bakeries matter. Lily stared at the screen, hand over her mouth. Her phone began to ping. Texts from old friends, catering inquiries, even a few pre-orders. When James walked in that morning, the smile on her face was unmissable. "Guess what?" she said, nearly breathless. "A food blog just reviewed me. The Crumb Trail. I didn't even know they knew I existed." James played it cool, setting his usual order on the counter. "That's incredible. I'm not surprised, though." Lily beamed. "I'm shocked, but I feel hopeful again. Like maybe I'm not just treading water." "I told you," James said. "People feel your heart in your food." She looked at him differently then, not just with appreciation, but something warmer, something growing. "I don't know what I'd do without you, James." He swallowed that truth like a bitter pill, because the part she didn't know was, she wouldn't be standing here today without him. And while her world began to glow again, James stood quietly in the corner, content to be her shadow. For now. The scent of raspberry scones and brown sugar crumbles filled Seaside Sweets that Friday morning. The town's weekend bustle was beginning to build, and Lily had a catering order due by noon for the Havenport Book Club, one of the bakery's most loyal clients. She hummed to herself as she placed trays of vanilla cupcakes in the oven, setting the timer with practiced precision. Everything felt right until it didn't. 10 minutes later, a faint burning smell crept into the kitchen. Lily rushed to the oven, frowning at the smoke curling from the vents. She yanked the door open, only to find the cupcakes already scorched, blackened at the edges. "What the?" she muttered, yanking on oven mitts. She twisted the temperature knob. It was set to 500 degrees. "I swear I set it to 350, she said aloud, confused. Molly stepped in from the front. "Something smells." "Oh, no." "I don't get it. I always double-check the temp," Lily said, voice cracking with frustration. "Now I have nothing to deliver. That was the last of the vanilla extract." Molly looked hesitant. "You don't think it could have been tampered with?" Lily paused. "You mean, like, sabotage?" Molly didn't answer. She didn't have to. Later that afternoon, James stopped by as usual, coffee in hand. He found Lily sitting on an overturned flower bucket near the back door, elbows on her knees, eyes tired. "Rough day?" he asked gently. Lily sighed. "The cupcakes burned. Oven got cranked up without me realizing. I missed the book club order." "That doesn't sound like you," James said. "Did the knob break?" She shook her head. "No, it was just wrong. I think someone changed it after I said it." James's jaw tightened. "Who else was here?" "Only me, Molly, and Vanessa dropped by." Her voice lowered. "She said she came to pick up a catering flyer, but she was poking around." James narrowed his eyes. "That woman never plays fair." Lily looked at him, startled. "You've barely met her." "I've met enough like her," James replied. A beat of silence passed before Lily muttered, "I'm so tired of fighting for something that always feels like it's slipping." "You're not alone in this," James said. She smiled faintly. "Sometimes it feels like I am." That night, James stayed late under the pretense of helping clean up. When Lily finally went upstairs to her small apartment above the shop, he returned to the kitchen. Quietly, he examined the oven controls. No signs of malfunction, but something else caught his eye. A faint fingerprint smudge near the knob, almost greasy. He snapped a picture, then tapped out a message to a contact. "Need forensic temp test, possible tampering, need answer fast." Then he called a number he hadn't used in months. "Ray, I need a favor. Discreet. I need to replace a commercial oven by Monday. Cash, and fast." Saturday morning, a delivery truck rolled up outside Seaside Sweets. Lily stared, confused, as two men began wheeling in a gleaming new oven. "Wait, what is this?" James stepped forward casually. "A friend of mine owed me a favor. Said his kitchen equipment place had a unit they couldn't unload. I told him about your fire issue." "You told him?" Lily asked, folding her arms. "I may have mentioned it." She stared at the oven. "This thing is brand new." James shrugged. "Let's call it an early Christmas miracle." Lily softened. "You didn't have to do this." He gave her a small smile. "Maybe not, but someone needs to have your back." She looked away, biting her lip to keep the emotion from showing. "Thank you," she whispered. He didn't say another word, just turned and picked up the instruction manual as if it were the most normal thing in the world to replace someone's oven on a Saturday morning. But for Lily, the act echoed in her chest louder than any words could. And, somewhere across town, Vanessa was already planning her next move. The sun crept through the bakery's window blinds as Lily unlocked Seaside Sweets on Monday morning, humming softly to herself. The new oven gleamed like a beacon of hope, and for the first time in weeks, She felt like things might be turning around. She didn't know that across town Vanessa was already setting her next trap. By midweek, trouble arrived in a plain manila envelope. Lily was at the front counter when her boss, Mr. Dawson, emerged from his office with a frown. He held the envelope as if it were a snake. "Lily, can I see you for a second?" She followed him inside, her heart already thudding. He placed the envelope on the desk. "This showed up anonymously this morning." Inside were high-resolution printouts, photos of a cake with Lily's signature lemon lavender drizzle design, except the watermark in the corner didn't read Seaside Sweets. It read Sugar Bloom Bakery, Vanessa's shop. "There's more," Mr. Dawson said grimly, pulling up a social media post. "She's claiming the recipe is hers. Says she's launching a line based on it." Lily's eyes stung. "That's impossible. She doesn't even know the ratios. That cake is my own, my grandmother's base recipe with my adjustments." Mr. Dawson looked torn. "I believe you, Lily, but this makes us look like the copycats." "She must have gotten into my recipe book," Lily whispered, realization crashing over her. "That day she dropped by, I left it out on the prep table." He sighed. "You've been a rock here. But if this becomes a lawsuit, we can't afford the bad press. I need you to prove the recipe is yours, or at least distance us from the design." That night, Lily sat in her small apartment staring at the ceiling. The walls felt closer than usual. Her recipe book, now replaced with a blank notebook, sat on the kitchen table like a ghost of her stolen work. The knock on her door startled her. It was James, holding 2 mugs of hot cocoa and a small brown bag. "I figured you might need some sugar that doesn't come with drama," he said gently. She tried to smile, but the corners of her lips didn't lift. "She stole my recipe, my name, my design, everything." James set the cocoa down. "Then it's time someone held her accountable." Lily looked up. "What do you mean?" James hesitated. "I know people who are good at tracking digital footprints. If she uploaded the recipe somewhere or sent it to a printer, there could be a trail." She blinked. "Why would you know people like that?" James waved a hand, dodging the question. "Let's just say I've helped small businesses before." Lily exhaled. "I appreciate it, but I can't pay anyone for that." "You don't need to," he said quietly. She stared at him. "Why are you doing all this for me?" James met her gaze. "Because you're the kind of person who deserves a win. And because I care." The silence between them turned thick, charged with something unsaid. "Okay," she finally whispered. "Let's try." By Friday, James had his answer. Vanessa sent the design to a print shop downtown, he told Lily, handing her a folder with time-stamped proofs. 2 days after she came to your bakery. Lily's jaw clenched. "This is enough, right?" James nodded. "It's more than enough to call her bluff. But whether or not you go public, that's your call." Lily looked down at the papers in her hand. "I don't want revenge. I just want my name back." He smiled. "Then we'll get it." At Sugar Bloom Bakery, Vanessa scrolled through her phone when an email popped up. "Cease and desist. Misuse of intellectual property." Her smirk faded. And in Havenport, the tide began to turn. The sun rose over Havenport with the promise of crisp ocean air and clinking coffee mugs. But inside Lily's chest, a storm still brewed. Vanessa hadn't responded publicly to the cease and desist, but word had spread among local vendors. Some sided with Vanessa. Others kept their distance, wary of picking sides. Business at Seaside Sweets hung in limbo. That's when the email came. Subject: Havenport Harvest Festival. Invitation to apply. "We would love to feature your bakery's original treats at this year's event." Lily blinked, rereading it twice. The festival was one of the town's biggest events, a food lover's paradise with a waiting list a mile long. She'd applied 2 years ago and never even got a reply. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, her heart racing. Later that evening, she brought it up to James, who was helping her wipe down counters. "You think I should do it?" she asked. James looked at her like the answer was obvious. "Absolutely. This is your chance to remind Havenport who you are." She hesitated. What if they only invited me to stir up drama? Then give them something sweeter to remember. She laughed, a soft breath of relief. "Okay, I'm in." What she didn't know was that James had gently nudged the festival committee, who happened to receive generous community funding from a silent partner named Coastal Ventures. 2 weeks later, Lily stood behind a booth adorned with white linens, pastel bunting, and trays of lemon-lavender cupcakes, sea salt caramel tarts, and a new seasonal creation, pumpkin maple bites. A small chalkboard read, "Everything made from scratch. Every flavor tells a story." The crowd loved her. By noon, she had a line 20 deep. Even James, waiting patiently near the end, grinned with quiet pride. "Popular girl," he teased when he finally reached her table. Lily beamed, handing him a tart. "Popular pastries." A pause. Then she added more softly, "I couldn't have done this without your encouragement." James looked down, his voice thick with emotion. "You could have, but I'm glad I got to stand beside you." Their eyes held for a moment longer than usual, and something shifted between them, something deeper, fragile, unspoken. Not far away, Vanessa stood near her own booth, newly rebranded, sparsely visited. She glared across the crowd, arms crossed. She'd underestimated Lily. Worse, she'd underestimated James. Back at her shop later that evening, Vanessa pulled up her laptop and began typing furiously. Search, James plus Havenport plus investments. What she found made her freeze. James Ellison, CEO of Coastal Ventures. Her stomach dropped. "Oh," she muttered, a slow grin spreading. So that's how she bounced back. The next afternoon, Lily and James sat on a bench near the marina, watching boats glide by. "I haven't felt this hopeful in a long time," she said, sipping her coffee. James nodded. "You've earned it." She looked at him. "You always say that, but it feels like someone's been clearing the thorns from my path." He chuckled lightly. "Maybe someone just believes you shouldn't have to walk through fire alone." The vulnerability in his tone wasn't lost on her. She turned toward him, brushing a crumb from his sleeve. "Thank you for seeing me." James started to speak but stopped himself. Instead, he whispered, "Always." Across town, Vanessa closed her laptop and picked up her phone. If Lily thought this story ended at the festival, she was dead wrong. The next chapter would be hers to write. Vanessa tapped her manicured nails against the porcelain mug at Havenport's upscale cafe. Her laptop sat open before her, screen glowing with the search results that had confirmed everything. James Ellison, CEO of Coastal Ventures. Net worth undisclosed. Philanthropist. Private. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. He'd been playing poor, helping Lily behind the scenes, charming in his low-key way. But now she knew who held the power in this story, and she planned to use it. James sat on a bench outside Seaside Sweets later that afternoon, thumbing through emails. He looked up when Vanessa approached in heels that clicked too loudly on the cobblestone path. "Mind if I sit?" she asked, saccharine sweet. He studied her for a moment, cautious. "Sure." She sat, crossing her legs like a queen surveying her court. "I just wanted to thank you," she began. "It's so rare to meet a man who'd go to such lengths, for a woman who doesn't even know who you really are." James stiffened slightly. "I'm not sure what you mean." "Oh, I think you do." She turned, eyes sharp now. James Ellison, Coastal Ventures, quiet investor in half the businesses on Main Street, including the Festival Fund. He said nothing, his expression unreadable. I'm not here to expose you. Not yet. But let's be honest, Lily has no idea, and I wonder how she'd feel knowing the man she trusts the most has been lying to her since day one. James's jaw tensed. I've never lied to Lily. Vanessa raised a brow. Really? Hiding your identity isn't lying? Look, I don't care what your reasons were. I'm just saying. It'd be a shame if all that trust crumbled like one of her lemon tarts. What do you want? He asked flatly. She leaned in, voice cool. Step back. Stop helping her. Let her sink or swim without your wallet cushioning the fall. If you don't, I go public with proof. James looked away, heart pounding. Vanessa stood, smoothing her coat. You have until the end of the week. Enjoy the sunset. Inside Seaside Sweets, Lily was frosting a triple-berry layer cake when James walked in. She smiled instinctively, but her expression dimmed at the tightness on his face. You okay? She asked. He tried to smile. Just a long day. She didn't press. He admired that about her, how she never forced conversation, just created space for it to happen. It made what he had to do even harder. That night, James paced his living room, phone in hand. One call to his lawyer could neutralize Vanessa's threat, but it would drag Lily into a public mess. She didn't deserve that. The secret had grown too heavy. He stared out at the darkened marina, wondering if the love built on omission could survive the truth. Vanessa, meanwhile, had already begun Phase 2. The next morning, a surprise health inspection was called on Seaside Sweets, an anonymous tip claiming poor sanitation practices. Inspectors combed the kitchen, noting that a refrigerator thermometer read 5 degrees too high. Lily was mortified. How could this happen? She whispered as she watched the clipboard-wielding official shake his head. The bakery was ordered to shut down temporarily for reinspection. By evening, Lily stood in her empty shop, lights dimmed, shelves bare, heart hollow. She glanced at her phone, James's name on her screen. She didn't answer. When James arrived later, she met him outside. I think I just need space, she said quietly, not meeting his eyes. He opened his mouth, but the words failed. Thank you for everything, she added, and closed the door gently behind her. As James walked away, shoulders heavy, he knew Vanessa had played her hand. But so would he. Because Lily deserved more than a quiet protector. She deserved the truth, and someone willing to fight out loud for her. It was supposed to be a quiet Monday morning, the kind that brought promise with the scent of warm muffins and the hum of the coffee machine at Seaside Sweets. But when Lily arrived, she was met by 2 stern-faced inspectors standing at her front door. Lily Green, one asked, flashing a badge. We received a tip about a potential health code violation. Lily blinked. What? That can't be right. I clean every night. We just passed inspection 2 months ago. They didn't argue. They walked in, clipboards out, and started scouring every shelf and surface. Lily trailed them nervously, heart thudding. When one of them pulled back a rack in the pantry and pointed to several unlabeled jars tucked behind the flour bins, her stomach dropped. I've never seen those, she said quickly, eyes wide. I swear, those aren't mine. They exchanged glances. We'll need to shut the shop down for now. The words felt like a punch to the chest. By noon, a closed until further notice sign hung on the front window. Lily sat alone inside, her apron still tied around her waist, staring at the empty tables. Her phone buzzed with texts from concerned customers. A few, more curious than kind, sent screenshots of the local gossip blog already reporting the closure. She didn't answer any of them, but she did respond when James called. Hey, she said, trying to sound normal, but her voice cracked. I saw the post, James said gently. Are you okay? Lily hesitated. They shut me down. They said there were unlabeled jars in the pantry, but I didn't put them there, James. Someone planted them. I know it. He didn't say who he thought it was. Neither did she. But the name lingered in the space between their silence. Vanessa. I'll come by, he offered. No, Lily said quickly. I just need a minute. I don't want anyone to see me like this. She swallowed the tears and added, Thanks, though. After they hung up, James sat motionless in his apartment, the screen still glowing. Rage simmered under his calm exterior. He knew Vanessa was behind it. She had all but promised this would happen if he didn't stop helping Lily, and now she had followed through. He opened a locked drawer in his desk, pulled out the file he'd been building. Notes, copies of suspicious invoices, and, most importantly, a photo of Vanessa slipping into the alley behind Seaside Sweets the night before the inspection. She hadn't seen the new security camera James had discreetly installed the week prior. He exhaled, staring at the image. You messed with the wrong woman, he muttered. Meanwhile, Lily wandered the waterfront boardwalk, the salty breeze stinging her eyes. She passed by Seaside Sweets twice, staring at the sign on the window, then kept walking. She ended up on a bench near the lighthouse, legs tucked up, arms around her knees. The sun was beginning to dip low, casting the harbor in golden hues, but all she saw was her dream fading. What was the point anymore? Her bakery was shut down. Her reputation was hanging by a thread. Her savings were nearly gone. And though James had been there through it all, even he couldn't fix this. Or so she thought, because even as she sat there, breaking quietly on a public bench, James was already in motion. He wasn't just a kind face with a warm voice. He was a man with resources and a heart full of quiet fury. Vanessa had crossed the line, and this time James wouldn't stay in the shadows. The first light of dawn washed over Havenport's waterfront like a promise. But for James, sleep hadn't come. He sat at his desk surrounded by evidence, emails, receipts, and most importantly, the security footage. The grainy clip played again. Vanessa, dressed in black, slipping through the alley behind Seaside Sweets just after midnight, carrying a tote bag. She had no idea she was walking straight into a trap. James forwarded the video and a brief statement, anonymously, to the regional health inspector's office. He didn't need thanks. He just needed them to act. Then he turned his attention to Lily. That morning, she opened a pop-up stall outside the shuttered bakery, folding table and all. A handwritten sign read, Lily's Treats, fresh and honest. Her hands trembled as she arranged muffins and cinnamon rolls, but her smile was there, painted on with sheer will. Locals trickled by. Some offered sympathy, others skepticism. Mrs. Delgado, one of her oldest customers, stepped up with a kind smile. They can't keep a good heart down, Lily. Lily blinked back tears. Thank you. That means more than you know. Later, James appeared. Pop-up stall, huh? She tried to act casual. Just trying to stay afloat? James noticed how tired her eyes looked, how much weight she seemed to carry in her silence. Lily, I know you're hurting, but you haven't lost. She didn't respond right away. Finally, she said, It's not just the bakery. It's feeling like someone's trying to erase everything I built. James clenched his jaw but kept his voice calm. They can't. They won't. Back at Coastal Ventures, James handed a flash drive to his assistant, Megan. Have this notarized. Email it to the Havenport Health Authority with no sender ID. Then check the blogger who posted that Lily's Bakery got shut down article last week. Find out who tipped them off. Got it, Megan said, catching the fire in his tone. She'd never seen James so personally invested. Meanwhile, Vanessa doubled down. She stood outside her shop, Vanessa's Vintage Sweets, offering half-off pastries and chatting with customers in her too bright voice. But beneath the surface, her nerves frayed. She hadn't heard back from James since their confrontation. And worse, rumors swirled that Seaside Sweets might reopen. Vanessa pulled out her phone and dialed the anonymous number she'd used before. No answer. She gritted her teeth. Back at the pop-up, Lily boxed a cake for a young mom with twins and waved as they walked off. Then she sat on the curb, letting the quiet seep in. James sat beside her. "You know," he said gently, "I've seen a lot of people in business. Some fold when it gets hard, others adapt. What you're doing out here, that's the heart of a real entrepreneur." She looked at him, weary but soft. "That's kind of poetic for a guy who sells insurance." He chuckled. "Maybe I've got layers." They shared a look. A quiet, unspoken warmth passed between them. Then Lily's phone buzzed. A message from the city's health board. Her fingers shook as she opened it. Her eyes scanned fast, then went wide. "They're reopening the investigation," she whispered. "They said new evidence surfaced. They think someone tampered with the inspection." James looked away quickly, hiding the relief that flickered across his face. "That's good news, right?" She nodded, stunned. Yeah. It is. It really is." For the first time in days, hope flickered in her chest. Little did she know, it hadn't come from luck. It had come from love. The kind you don't see until the storm passes and the sun breaks through. And James? He was ready to do whatever it took to keep that light from going out again. The coastal breeze danced through the festival grounds, carrying scents of sea salt and sugar. Booths buzzed with chatter, and a stage stood adorned with pastel bunting for the annual Havenport baking showcase. Lily adjusted her apron at her pop-up stall, heart pounding as she placed her signature honey lavender cupcakes in neat rows. After everything, Vanessa's sabotage, the health scare, the temporary closure, this was her comeback moment. James stood a few paces away, hands in his pockets, watching her with quiet pride. He knew what was coming, and so did Vanessa. She stood under her polished red and white striped tent, flashing perfect teeth as she handed out glossy flyers, but her eyes kept drifting toward Lily. Tension crackled in the air. The announcer stepped up to the mic. "And now, it's time for our community bake-off exhibition. All participants, please bring your featured dish to the judges' table." Lily carefully picked up her tray and headed toward the tent, nerves tingling. She hadn't seen James much that morning, and part of her still carried questions about him, about who he really was. Then, out of nowhere, Vanessa's voice rang out. "I think there's something the judges should know." The crowd turned. Lily froze mid-step. Vanessa strode toward the center with an envelope in her hand. This contestant, Lily Carter, was recently shut down for health violations. I have a copy of the report. Is this who we want representing Havenport's culinary scene? Gasps spread like wildfire. The MC looked stunned. Lily's face drained of color. "That report was forged," she said, voice shaking. But Vanessa cut her off, holding the envelope high. "I'm just protecting the integrity of this competition." Before the crowd could murmur further, James stepped forward. Calm, composed, purposeful. "Enough." All eyes shifted. He walked to the center and gently took the microphone from the MC. "My name is James Foster. Some of you may know me from around town. What most of you don't know is that I'm the CEO of Coastal Ventures." Gasps erupted louder this time. Lily stared, frozen. James continued, "I've kept that part of me quiet because I believe in real people, real effort, and real hearts. And Lily Carter? She's the most honest, resilient person I've ever known. He turned to Vanessa. You want to talk about integrity? Here's what I found. He held up a USB and nodded to a nearby AV tech. Within seconds, security footage played on a screen behind the stage. Vanessa sneaking into the alley, carrying a bag, slipping something into the dumpster behind Seaside Sweets. The room fell silent. Then came whispers, then outrage. James added, This footage, along with forged documents found in her files, has been sent to the health board. An official investigation has cleared Lily's bakery of all violations. Vanessa, on the other hand, the head of the festival committee stood up from the judge's table. Vanessa Whitmore, you're disqualified, effective immediately. Vanessa's face crumpled. She stumbled backward, fury and humiliation twisting her features before storming off. James turned back to Lily, breath held. She didn't speak, not yet. Instead, she walked slowly to the microphone and looked out at the crowd. I didn't come here to prove anyone wrong. I came here to do what I love, and what I love is baking with heart. A round of applause grew, sincere and steady, building into a cheer. She stepped off the stage and walked past James. He followed. Lily, You lied to me. I didn't mean to hurt you. I wanted to help. Without changing how you saw me, her voice trembled. You changed everything. James looked into her eyes, vulnerable. Then let me start again. She held his gaze for a long, aching moment. I need time. He nodded. I'll wait. As the crowd bustled around them, Lily returned to her stall, heart cracked but not broken. James stood back, watching her move with quiet grace. The truth had come out, but healing. That would take longer. And love, the kind built on unseen devotion, was still waiting to prove itself. The buzz of the festival had faded, replaced by the hush of dusk blanketing Havenport. The glow of string lights flickered above Seaside Sweets' shuttered windows. Inside, Lily sat at one of the corner tables, her apron folded neatly beside her, untouched coffee cooling at her elbow. The bakery had been cleared of all wrongdoing, her name restored, Vanessa fined and publicly disgraced. But the knot in her chest hadn't loosened. She barely looked up when the bell over the door chimed. James stepped in quietly, not as the powerful CEO of Coastal Ventures, but just as James, the man who once listened to her fret over cake frosting and offered warmth without conditions. Lily's voice was soft, steady. You kept it from me. All of it. James nodded. I did. Why? Her eyes searched his face, not for excuses, but for honesty. Why go so far to help me, Saad? And not tell me who you really were? He pulled out the chair across from her, sitting without touching the coffee she'd poured for two. Because I didn't want to be the reason you felt indebted. I didn't want my name or money to change how you saw me. She looked away, jaw tightening. But it did change everything. It made me question if anything was real. It was, he said quickly. Every moment, every laugh, every late-night cupcake test and quiet conversation. I didn't plan to fall for you, Lily, but I did. And when I realized it, I got scared. She met his gaze, her voice cracked. Scared of what? That if I told you who I was, you'd stop seeing me as someone worth loving and start seeing a man with influence. I thought if I stayed quiet, we could grow something real. But the truth is, I should have trusted you sooner. She swallowed hard, her throat tight. You should have. Silence stretched between them, filled only by the faint clatter of dishes being stacked in the back. James leaned forward, his voice gentle. When Vanessa tried to destroy you, I knew I couldn't stay in the shadows. Not anymore. I needed to protect you, even if it meant losing you. Lily closed her eyes for a moment. Her heart warred between betrayal and gratitude, between the ache of being kept in the dark and the depth of his sacrifices. "You fixed what she broke," she whispered. "You gave up your secret. For me." "I would have given up more," he said. "Everything, if it meant keeping your dreams alive." She looked at him, her voice soft. "But you don't get to decide what I can handle. You should have let me in." James nodded slowly. "You're right. I tried to shield you, and ended up hurting you instead." She rose from the table, walking slowly to the bakery window. Outside, the street lamps cast golden pools of light on the cobblestone street. James stood behind her, but didn't come closer. Lily spoke without turning. "I need to figure out what this means. What we are now. I'm grateful, more than I can say, but I need time." His voice was quiet. "I understand." She turned back, eyes glassy but sure. "This bakery. It's always been about more than pastries. It's been about creating something with love. I can't lose that. Not in my food, and not in my heart." He gave a small nod. "Then I'll wait, however long it takes." As he stepped toward the door, Lily called after him, "James?" He paused. "You were right about one thing," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "Everything was real." A bittersweet smile crossed his face. "Then maybe we still have a chance." And with that, he slipped out into the night, leaving behind the man she thought she knew, and the one she was only beginning to truly see. The salty morning breeze swept in from Havenport Harbor, ruffling the awning above Lily's modest pop-up stall. She stood behind a counter of checkered cloth and freshly baked goods, hands dusted in flour, her smile small but steady. The past few weeks had stretched her heart thin, but this felt like solid ground again. Seaside Sweets was still closed for repairs, the old storefront's windows taped with a cheerful "coming back soon" sign. But Lily wasn't waiting for perfect. She'd built a makeshift bakery from determination and sheer will. Her lemon blueberry muffins sold out before noon most days. Locals, who once walked past in doubt, now stopped with eager grins and kind words. "Lily, these are the best scones I've ever had," said Mrs. Connors, the retired schoolteacher who'd become a regular. "You've got something special here." Lily wiped her hands and smiled. "Thank you, truly. It means more than you know." Behind the scenes, her small business loan had finally come through. With the inspector's full clearance and her name restored, she was days away from reopening the original bakery. The thought filled her with hope, but also hesitation. So much had changed, and not just in the kitchen. James had kept his distance since their last conversation. No texts, no flowers, no quiet drop-ins, just silence. And though her mind knew it was respectful, her heart missed the comfort of his steady presence. "Earth to Lily," teased her best friend Zoe, stepping up beside her stall with 2 coffees. "You zoning out over pastries or over a certain handsome CEO?" Lily rolled her eyes but chuckled. "Don't start." Zoe nudged her. "He's not a villain, Lil. He just made a really complicated decision for the wrong reason. But all I saw was a man trying to love you without conditions." Lily exhaled, tracing the rim of her cup. "I know, and that's what makes it so hard." That evening, after packing up the last tray and folding the stall's canopy, Lily returned to the bakery's storefront. She unlocked the door and stepped into the familiar scent of cinnamon and vanilla still lingering in the walls. Her gaze fell on the corner table, their table, where she and James had once shared countless conversations over test batches and coffee. A soft knock on the glass startled her. She turned. James stood on the other side, holding a simple white box in his hands. She opened the door slowly. "I didn't want to intrude," he said, voice tentative. "But I heard the bakery's reopening soon." Lily nodded, stepping aside to let him in. 2 more days." He handed her the box. "It's from my grandmother's recipe collection. I thought you might like it." She made a honey lavender loaf that reminded me of your baking. Simple, unexpected, unforgettable. Lily opened the lid. Inside, a bundle of handwritten cards, aged and delicate, smelled faintly of nostalgia and lemon balm. She looked up, emotion welling. James? Why this? Because I wanted to give you something honest. Something from my real life. No disguises. No secrets. They stood in silence, the moment fragile. I've missed you, she admitted finally. James stepped closer, but didn't reach for her hand. I've missed you too, but more than that, I've missed us. The laughter, the late nights, the way you see people when they don't know how to be seen. Lily smiled softly. I see you now. And I'm not hiding anymore, he said. She took a breath. Then maybe it's time we start again. Not from scratch, but from truth. James's eyes lit with hope. Does that mean I can help you reopen the bakery? Lily grinned. Only if you promise not to buy me an oven without asking first. He laughed, relief breaking through. Deal. As they stood amid the warm shadows of Seaside Sweets, the scent of lavender lingering between them, Lily felt it. Something new beginning. Not perfect, not easy, but real. And for the first time in weeks, her heart felt full. Lily stood behind the counter of Seaside Sweets, the scent of vanilla and cinnamon swirling in the air like a welcome home hug. The reopening had gone better than she dared to imagine. The line out to the door earlier that morning had felt like a dream she'd almost let go of. But now, seeing the cozy space buzzing again, with customers laughing and sipping coffee, she knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. James sat at the corner table, nursing a warm mug of chamomile tea, his gaze fixed on her with a quiet reverence. He hadn't tried to talk much since he brought her the box of his grandmother's recipes. He was giving her space, letting her lead. But Lily had made up her mind. Today, she would close the gap between them. She walked over, wiping her hands on her apron. Room for one more? She asked softly. James straightened, eyes meeting hers. Always. She sat down, folding her hands on the table. I've been thinking a lot. About everything. I have too, he said, voice even, but edged with caution. Lily took a deep breath. When I first found out who you really were, it felt like the ground shifted. Not because you were rich, but because you didn't trust me with the truth. James nodded slowly. I know, and I'm sorry. I thought I was protecting something fragile between us. But I realize now, truth is the only thing strong enough to hold real love. She looked out at the window, the early evening light casting gold across the bakery floor. You helped me when I was falling apart. You stood by me when no one else did, and you never asked for anything in return. I didn't need anything, James said quietly, just to see you happy. Flour on your nose, fire in your heart, that was always enough. Her lips curved into a faint smile. You saw me when I didn't feel seen. That mattered. James leaned forward. Lily, I don't want to just be the guy who helps from the sidelines. I want to be in your life, fully, openly. No secrets, no hiding behind bakery counters or investor meetings. She met his eyes. You said you missed us. I do too. But this time we do it differently. No pretending. No guessing. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded card, an invitation to a community baking class fundraiser. At the bottom, in small print, it read, Sponsored by Seaside Sweets and Coastal Ventures. Lily laughed, her chest tightening with emotion. You're sneaky, but I'll allow it. James chuckled. It's your event. I'm just the guy who gets to roll dough next to you. They sat there, the noise of the bakery fading into a warm hum around them. The tension that had hung between them for weeks finally began to ease. I want to invite you, Lily said softly, to the grand reopening celebration this weekend, as my guest and my partner, not in business, just in life. James's expression softened. I'd be honored. She reached across the table, taking his hand in hers. "We built something beautiful out of a lot of chaos, and I don't want to walk into this next chapter without you." He gave her hand a gentle squeeze. "Then let's write the next chapter together." As twilight deepened outside and the bakery lights glowed warmly against the glass, Lily felt the final cracks in her heart begin to heal. Love, she realized, didn't have to be perfect. It just had to be honest. And between the scent of sugar and trust, they had all the ingredients they needed. The sun rose over Havenport with a soft golden hue, casting a warm glow on the refurbished sign above Seaside Sweets. It read, "Seaside Sweets, home of heartfelt baking." Below it, Lily adjusted the final ribbon on the entryway, her fingers trembling not from nerves, but gratitude. Today wasn't just a reopening, it was a rebirth. Inside, the smell of fresh cinnamon rolls, lemon-glazed scones, and dark chocolate tartlets filled the air. Every surface gleamed, and the hand-painted mural on the back wall, waves crashing gently under a moonlit sky, served as a tribute to resilience. James stepped through the door just before the crowd arrived, holding 2 aprons. One read Boss of Butter, the other CEO of Cinnamon. Lily laughed when she saw them. "You really think I'm letting you near my dough mixer?" she teased, tying the apron around his waist. He leaned closer. "I make a mean sugar cookie. Don't test me." They shared a smile, no longer hiding, no longer hesitating. Just 2 people who had weathered storms and chosen each other. The bell above the door jingled as customers, neighbors, old friends, and a few curious, new faces began to flood in. There were hugs, gasps at the upgraded decor, and bites of pastries followed by joyful moans. Even the mayor dropped by, handing Lily a small plaque. "In recognition of small business excellence." Her hands trembled as she accepted it. From behind the counter, Lily watched it all unfold with misty eyes. Vanessa's name didn't come up once. Her rival's shop had quietly shut its doors last week. Some said she moved out of town. Others didn't care. The bakery wars were over. James poured coffee for guests like he'd been doing it his whole life. A little boy tugged on his apron and asked for more whipped cream. James obliged with a grin, then glanced back at Lily. She saw it in his eyes. The pride, the peace, and she felt it in her own chest, too. This dream wasn't just hers anymore. It was theirs. Later in the afternoon, as the crowd thinned and sunlight poured through the big bay window, Lily stood beside James in front of a small chalkboard sign that read, "Community Baking Classes, starting this fall." "You ready to teach?" he asked, nudging her shoulder. "I thought you were the sugar cookie expert," she replied with mock seriousness. He shrugged. "You run the kitchen, I'll do quality control." They both laughed, and the sound wrapped around the empty tables like music. Lily reached into her pocket and pulled out a note, one of the ones James had quietly slipped into her pastry boxes in the early days. It read, "You've got something special. Don't ever let the world dim it." She held it out to him. "You kept this?" he asked softly. "I kept all of them," she replied. "Even before I knew who you were. I felt safe with you, like I wasn't carrying the dream alone." James's voice dropped to a whisper, "You never were." They stood in silence for a beat, hand in hand, the scent of warm bread rising between them. Then Lily leaned up and kissed him, slow, sweet, certain. No crowd watching, no drama left, just love, soft and quiet, exactly how it began. Outside, the bakery sign swung gently in the breeze. Seaside Sweets had risen from sabotage, heartbreak, and self-doubt. But more than that, it had risen from love. Because real love doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to show up, day after day, until trust and flour form something beautiful. And this time, Lily and James would bake it together, forever. Thank you for watching till the end. If this story touched your heart, made you think, or brought a tear to your eye, that's why we tell it. Stay with us for more powerful stories. See you next time.